I can tell you the names of Ramses the Great's 2 horses that pulled his chariots into battle, but we don't have any plans at all for buildings. It's almost like, and I don't mean it's really a secret, but it's almost like they just didn't want to write it down. So we don't have any plans for building anything, including the pyramids.
They didn't want anybody to copy them?
I don't think so. Building a pyramid is a big thing that it's hard to keep a secret. You're building this pyramid. Thousands of people are going to see this thing going up on the Giza Plateau. So I don't think it really was a secret, but it's almost like they just didn't want to write it down.
You say that the knowledge to build the Great Pyramid was more of an evolution rather than an invention. Explain that.
Yeah, sure. No architect ever woke up one morning and said, I got an idea, we're going to build a pyramid. That didn't happen. Originally, before the pyramids, they buried their dead in the sand, just simple sand pit burials. Now, that's really good for the body. It mummifies it naturally. The sand dries the body, and that body will be preserved. But the problem is, over the centuries, the sand's going to blow away. So they wanted to put something on top of the burial. And they did this bench-like structure. There's an Arabic word for it, mastaba, which means a bench. And it looks like a bench, but it's a bunch of, it's really a pile of mud bricks, but it keeps the body intact. Now then, some architect got the idea, who was building a tomb for his pharaoh, that he's going to build the best mastaba ever. And what he did was he built a really big mastaba out of stone, and then he put another mastaba on top of it, and then another one on top of that. A
smaller one.
Right, a smaller one. And it looks like a wedding cake, little mastabas on top of mastabas. And that's the step pyramid at Saqqara. That's the first pyramid ever built, and it's an evolution out of these sandpit burials from a mastaba to another one on top of that one and that one. So it really evolved.
Tell us about the architect of the Great Pyramid.
We know his name. Architects were really important in ancient Egypt. We know the names of maybe 20 architects, maybe more. These were guys who had status. They did important things for us. They really knew what they were doing. Now, the guy who built the Great Pyramid is named Hemienu. Hemienu was the genius who built the biggest pyramid, the most complex pyramid, the most fabulous pyramid ever built. And we have a statue of him that's great. It's a great thing. It's in the Museum of Germany in Hildesheim. And it shows Hemienu seated on a chair. And he's really fat. And the idea is that he's saying for eternity, I'm wealthy. It was a status symbol. So we know Hemienu, we know what he looked like. We have his tomb. We know where he was built. He's built right in the shadow of the pyramid he built. He's right in a cemetery right next to the Great Pyramid of Giza.
How was this site selected?
The Great Pyramid is built at Giza, which is a plateau. And the reason it was selected was really sort of more functional than religious. Now, you're going to build this pyramid. They had the plans already. They knew what they were going to do. And they knew they were going to need 2 million blocks of limestone, averaging 2 tons each, 2.5 tons each. That's a lot of limestone. So the idea is, build your pyramid near the source of the stone, so you don't have to haul it a long way. So you're going to save a lot of labor. So this is where Hemienu has his first maybe stroke of genius. You're going to build it near the quarry, right? So you don't have to pull it long. He didn't build it near the quarry. He built it in the quarry, right in the quarry. So that's why they selected that site, because that's where the limestone is and you don't have to haul the blocks. And I'll tell you something, another stroke of genius for this guy. When he built it in the quarry, now naturally you're going to level the building site to have your pyramid on bedrock. So you can have it nice and flat. But he didn't level the middle of the pyramid's area. You got a big outcropping of limestone that goes right up inside the pyramid. It's like a little mini mountain inside the pyramid of limestone, and that saved him a couple of 100,000 blocks of stone. He didn't have to quarry and build it up. So he really had some amazing ideas.
He clearly had this all kind of planned out before he even started. I mean, this wasn't something that you start building and then figure out the problems as you go along.
No. I'll give you an example of how much planning they had. There's 3 burial chambers inside the Great Pyramid. 3. One's underground, one's a little ways up the pyramid, and the third one is pretty high up in the pyramid. And the idea was that Hemienu knew maybe the pharaoh's not going to live long enough to see his pyramid finished. So if he dies in the first 5 years of building the pyramid, they've got a burial chamber underground ready. Right? The 3 burials are for different stages if the pharaoh lives long enough. So if Khufu, who was the builder of the pharaoh who's buried in it, if Khufu lasted, say, only 5 years, we've got a burial spot ready for him. If he lasts a little longer, maybe 10, 12 years, we've got the next pyramid up inside, the next burial chamber up inside the pyramid. And if he lasts 17, 18 years, we've got the third burial chamber. So they're planning ahead. If the pharaoh dies now, they got to have something ready for him. So it was amazing planning.
And he knew it would take 20 years to complete this.
Yeah, they figured it out. Now remember, Egypt has been building pyramids for about 100 years when this pyramid is built, when the Great Pyramid is built. So they've got experience. They know it goes up, at a certain rate. And they knew it's going to take about 20 years.
And if the pharaoh had died during the building, they would have buried him in one of the lower chambers. Would they have continued building, or would that have been the end?
End of story. They wouldn't continue and complete the pyramid because the next pharaoh wants to start on his. So no pharaoh ever completed a tomb or a pyramid for his predecessor. They always wanted to get going on theirs. So no, they knew as soon as Khufu dies, that's it. So it better be ready.
It's a good thing that he had good longevity then.
Yeah, we wouldn't have the Great Pyramid of Giza.
Did the Egyptians build any pyramids or substantial pyramids after the three big ones at Giza?
No. It's interesting. There are 6 or 7 really big pyramids in Egypt. And they were all built within a period of 100 years. There was this fabulous spurt of building and construction, probably the greatest building spurt on Earth. And they built all these big pyramids, and then it stopped.
Why?
We're not 100% sure.
Maybe they feel like they can't outdo what they've already done?
Could be. It also could be the economy went down. Egypt wasn't always prosperous. Now remember, the pyramids are built at the early stages of Egyptian civilization. They don't come at the end as a culmination. They're built during what we call the Old Kingdom, the earliest recorded history in Egypt. And they're built in the Old Kingdom, and the Old Kingdom really collapsed. At some point, it just went downhill. We're not exactly sure why, but it really collapsed. And that was the end of the big pyramid. So no, after the Giza Plateau, it's all downhill for pyramid building.
I mentioned in the introduction that there are several theories about how the pyramid was built and how you can get those stones into place so far up off the ground. There was the idea that there was one long ramp up to the top. And as I mentioned before, if you were going to do that all the way to the top, it would have to be a mile long, and there's just no space for it. Yeah. What about the idea of the ramp going around the side and just kind of going up and up and up around the side of the pyramid?
Yeah, the two theories that you mentioned, Mimi, are the most important ones we've had. I've been teaching Egyptology for 35 years, and those are the two theories that I've been teaching. That I always tell my students we got two possibilities, this way and this way, and then I explain to them neither one really works. Let me tell you the real problem. The pyramid is 480 feet high. That's really high, and we understand how you can get the blocks to the bottom of the pyramid. The bottom maybe third, but when you get up past that 1/3 height, it's a problem getting a block really up. And as you say, the first theory, the single ramp theory, if it would be a mile long to get a ramp going to a 480-foot pyramid to the top, because you have to keep that slope gentle. These guys are pulling the blocks up a hill, and it can't be too steep. So we know that's out. You're right. I mean, that mile-long ramp can't work.
I mean, even that would be a substantial building project in and of itself.
It would be as big as the pyramid. It would be as much volume as the Great Pyramid itself. And another reason we know it can't be right is nobody ever found the remains of the ramp. And that's like you're talking about 4 million cubic, meters of ramp, and you can't haul that away. It's so much. So nobody's ever found that ramp. So